Hey folks, I'm making this recording, this video about an upcoming shift that we see that's going to be happening very soon in early February. You see, wait a minute, here's the chart. February 10th, we're going to have a bunch of planets move even from February, starting in February, like around February 5th. You see there's going to be all these planets piled up in Capricorn. Every planet except Mars will be there, and then that includes even the moon when we have a new moon here into February, like February 9th or 10th. We're going to have all these planets piled up in Capricorn. Now this is kind of crazy because about 60 years ago we had exactly the same thing. This is February 4th, 1962. If we go back, we can see every planet, even including Mars, was in Capricorn for quite a while. Look, we had the same kind of thing. This is back at the end of January 1962, all the way up until early February, all the planets were in Capricorn. In fact, we even had an eclipse, because you can see Sun, Moon, Ketu are here. Crazy situation coming up, and I call this video Doomsday, end of the world coming. I'm going to show you a few things that happened back in 1962 that were pretty crazy with Indian astrologers. I'll show you here. I have a screenshot of the news from 1962 when we had this transit. Now this is from January 1962. Around the end of January 1962, we had, I started looking at some of the events, and I wanted to, I'm going to show you a few of the things that happened so that we can look at the case study. But I want to go up first to February 1962 to show you a few of the things that happened, in fact, when we had the eclipse or right before it. I'm going to zoom in here. February 3rd especially, we had quite a few interesting things that happened on February 3rd, 1962. You see, the United States embargo against Cuba was announced by President Kennedy. That same embargo against Cuba is still happening today. So the Cuban embargo started, which meant that we can't buy any goods from Cuba. Now, not long after that, we would have the Cuban Missile Crisis within about a year or so. But you see, that day, February 3rd, 1962, is when the Cuban embargo started. That's still in effect today. But look what also happened. Hindu astrologers, at 7:05 a.m. Indian Standard Time, a doomsday period predicted by Indian astrologers began. It was reported that the astrologers predicted that on Saturday and Sunday and Monday the earth would be bathed in the blood of thousands of kings. Indian astrology, gotta love it. Because of the alignment of 6 planets, the earth, sun, and the moon. In Britain's Society, Director Keith Robertson would spend February 4th awaiting disaster along with many of the Society's members. He had forecasted very soon the world would do a big flip when the poles will change with the equator. 75% of the world's population would be killed. See, folks, look, nothing that's happening now is any different. Stuff's been happening forever. Doomsday, it's coming, da-da-da-da-da. This is why I made the video like this. Doomsday, end of the world. We're having the same transit that they thought was doomsday, end of the world, the last time it happened. 60 years ago when Jupiter, Saturn, and all these other planets joined. But then they had an eclipse as well. So they also dealt with an eclipse. And of course, that's not what happened. So you can see February 3rd, 1962, which I'll look at the date. It was right before we had the eclipse. We had the eclipse on the 5th. It was actually universal time. It was on the 5th we had the solar eclipse. on the 5th, extremely rare grand conjunction of the classical planets occurred again. So we just saw that conjunction. But a few other things happened that were also amazing on that eclipse day when we had the eclipse. You see, you got the Beatles here, Ringo Starr. Look at this. Hours before the Beatles were scheduled to play at the Cavern Club, drummer Pete Best told his fellow musicians that he was ill and wouldn't be able to appear. Determined not to cancel the show, the group called around for a replacement, and Ringo Starr, whose group had the day off, appeared in Best's place. So that was Ringo Starr's first gig with the Beatles. Now that's pretty cool. After that, they would all say, we really liked the lad. We really liked playing with the lad. And they eventually wound up hiring Ringo Starr. And I wanted to also show that at the end of January, I want to find the exact time. I think it was the 24th was the date. Let me see. 24th, yeah. January 24th, Brian Epstein made a verbal contract with the 4 members of the Beatles, becoming their manager in return for receiving up to 25% of their gross earnings. So in that eclipse time, or in that time when all those planets pile up in Capricorn in 1962, Indian astrologers were predicting the end of the world and the poles shifting and the world will be bathed in blood. 75% of the world will die. Meanwhile, in the world of the sane, Brian Epstein was looking to be the Beatles manager. The Beatles had their gig at the Cavern Club. Somehow they managed to push through. And Ringo Starr played his first gig. And so, I'm saying this to have some levity. Astrologers who make a lot of mistakes. They get a lot of things wrong. I've done a chart of people that were born at this time several times. I actually did a chart of someone who was born on the eclipse, the day of the eclipse. I know another person who actually sees my regular updates on Facebook and whatnot, who was also born either on the eclipse or at the time when this was happening. And I know him. He's quite a yogi. He does a lot of yoga. That's actually where I met him, in ashrams. So it's quite an interesting placement. I'll go back to the chart here, but again, this is a very interesting recurrence transit is what it's called. I wanted to show something as well, just to make sure that, wait a second. Shares. Whoops. Okay. That I wanted to make sure that people know, go back here, that I do also have, I want people to know of the 2021 Vedic astrology forecast as well, because that's one of the items here. I talked about where if you haven't got the 2021 forecast yet, we already had the first item on the list, which was the new cycle of hope. The real new year in 2021 happened on January 12th. So I know everyone was like, oh, January, here we are again. When is 2020 going to stop? It stopped. So the craziness that happened, January 12th is really the way I see it as the new year began. That new cycle of hope. January 12th, all right? Because the sun and moon came together in Sagittarius. Now, we're getting into the next part, is this time to concentrate all this energy in Capricorn. From February 4th to February 12th, all the planets except Mars are in Capricorn, including the moon for 2.5 days. So we even have a new moon at that time, right? February 4th to February 12th. And so, again, if you want to get the free 2021 forecast, you can go ahead and do that and hear me explain those things in great detail. If you want to know how these things affect your sign, I actually take all of these 10 shifts and I explain them from the position of, like, if you're a Libra, I explain how that relates to a Libra person. So you can also get that, your 2021 cast, right here. I just put that link in there, okay? So that's also available. So I just wanted to let people know. So we'll get back to the charts now. Very important, though, because 2021, again, so much gloom and doom going on right now in the world because of all the stuff that's happening. I said it last year. I said it in my 2021 forecast. Do you want a little bit of hope in your life? Or do you want to be walking around acting like the world's coming to an end? Part of the reason why we feel like the world's coming to an end is because of the intensity. This is the chart that's happening. Again, this was the chart in 1962. You can see there was also a, solar eclipse, because you see Sun, Moon, and Ketu were there. So they even had an eclipse at that time as well. That's why the Indian astrologers were saying, we're all going to die. It's the end of the world. Well, we don't have an eclipse there, but we do have Pluto. The outer planet Pluto just moved in. You can see in 1962, Pluto was over here. But we do have this outer planet of Pluto moved into sidereal Capricorn. I'm going to do an update about that here soon. I'm going to look at the Pluto transits, the sidereal Pluto transits over the last like 4 or 5 ingresses, when Pluto went through Virgo, when it went through Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and now Capricorn. So I'm going to do a video tracking those things. But we still have all these planets. This is where we're at. This will be February 10th. If we go to where we are now, as I'm recording this now, we're on January 17th. So we're here now. So again, this is coming up. Okay, so this is where we are now, right? And again, we have Sun, Saturn, Jupiter, and Mercury there now. Again, Venus is going to be there in less than 2 weeks, and that'll put every planet except Mars and then the Moon, based on its transits, there. So again, we're starting to really feel it now, that sort of concentration and that constriction of all these planets in Capricorn. So on the 27th, as I said in my forecast, that it was from the 27th until like February 5th, I think it was. 4th, 5th. Or actually, yeah, until like the 12th. It's quite a while that we have pretty much every planet there, and even the Moon for a while. You see that? And so again, we have that same kind of feeling, but also you can see the opportunity here. The other thing that was also, I'm going to go back to the website here again in a second, because I want to show some events. The other thing that's really cool about the events that we can notice at this time, I'll go back to the Wikipedia page, is there was a lot of things that had to do with space. Look, the American space probe Ranger 3 was launched in Cape Canaveral. There's other things. There's a lot of things in the news. Last streetcar in Washington, D.C., automobile manufacturers announced that American vehicles will be equipped with amber-colored turn signals. So you know, on your car, you have your headlights are white and the turn signals are amber or yellow. Well, that started here too. So again, that's not a big deal. But the Flying Walendas, the High Wire Act, had a catastrophe. They had a mishap. But in February, again, as we got closer to this conjunction, you see all these things with the space program. There was a couple scrapped missions. So President Kennedy delivered the first message entirely devoted to public welfare. Again, this early 60s, I already did a case study where I compared the times we're living in right now with the early 60s. The Jupiter-Saturn conjunction with this time of regeneration, of renewal. Go and find the forecast that I did. You know, I'm just going to flat out say this, not because I want to bring shade to other astrologers, but I see so many astrologers now and so many again, it's because of their political views and their political beliefs that haven't worked out, that are so like gloom and doom, like it's the end of the world. And again, you see they're acting like that, especially with some of the things that happened in the U.S. Capitol and all of this darkness, gloom and doom, the world's coming to an end, all this stuff. Again, if you want to be following that and filling your mind with all that stuff, then go ahead. But honestly, I haven't been. I've been very hopeful since the end of last year, and it's playing out. Again, we're still in some heavy times, but again, there's direct parallels to now and the early 60s when we had like JFK, the space program. Again, we had that whole thing with SpaceX not too long ago. I showed those parallels, right? So you could see even at this time, John F. Kennedy, early February 62, he delivered the first presidential message entirely devoted to public welfare, proposing federal aid to the poor extended to include job training programs. This would lead to the New Deal of Johnson, and all of the social programs of Johnson. But you can also see that there are other things related to the space program. So we have the U.S. embargo against Cuba. We have the Indian astrologers. Where is the thing? So again, and they talk about, during the solar eclipse, an extremely rare grand conjunction happened, according to Gene Dixon, blah, blah. Where is the thing? Here's the thing with the Beatles. Coal mine explosion. Where is it later on? Taiwan Stock Exchange. Lancaster. Did I get that wrong? Where is it that Indian National flood? Well, perhaps it was in late. Yeah, astronaut John Glenn. Here it is. This is later in February. Arrived in Cape Canaveral to hear his welcome and was reunited with his family for the first time before going into space. Oh, so John Glenn went into space. Where was it here? John Glenn. Let me do this. John Glenn. Here's John Glenn here. February 20th, John Glenn becomes the first American to go into orbit. Okay. So February 20th, John Glenn goes into orbit. So again, these are the things that was sent aloft. Okay. Aboard the third Project Mercury mission. Here it is. Okay. Launched at 9:47 a.m. local time and orbited 12 minutes later. After 3 circuits of the Earth, he left orbit, landed in the Atlantic Ocean. So again, all of this coincided with this intense pileup in Capricorn, right? Look at how transcendent those things were. How much this really set not just America, but the world in a whole new kind of, like a sort of reset. And when Jupiter Saturn came together first, like in early Capricorn, late Sagittarius, early Capricorn, it's the same cycle. So again, this is what's called a recurrence transit, which means it's recurring, and we're living that recurrence transit now. And so this is this whole thing is very it's very ripe right now. We're in an intense time, just like there was an intense time back then. They had the pressure of the Cuban Missile Crisis would come later. They had all the pressures of the Cold War and the space race. They were trying to go into space. So it was a pressure-filled time back then. This was back when they did, air raid shelter drills in schools and stuff. They were constantly afraid of nuclear war back then, that the Russians were going to get the bomb and send missiles flying, and we almost had a nuclear standoff with Russia on Cuba, which happened a year later, and the Cuban Missile Crisis later in '62. So they were also very charged times. But look at some of the things that happened at that time. We got through it, and look at the predictions. These Indian astrologers saying blood in the streets, world's going to end, and it didn't. And the same kind of intense possibility exists now, where it's a recurrence. It's the same. Here's 1962, all that time I was saying, and John Glenn went into space it was on the 20th. 12, let's pull it up. So this would have been the day that he went into space, John Glenn. So it was after the eclipse, Venus Sun came together. So you see that day would have been where Moon joined Pluto in the sky. Oh, and Moon was also opposite. Oh, it was a full moon. Yeah, so you could see there's, that would be an interesting chart to do. Maybe I'll draw up that chart. But again, you can see it was after all of that intensity. So again, like I always talk about with astrology, if we want to be childish, we can just be like, oh, it doesn't feel good. Oh, it's so hard. Oh, it's so hard. But anytime this much energy is concentrated in one place, wherever the place is, but you get all this energy concentrated, then it's time to really, again, concentrate on that thing and really bring out the mastery and the power of that. And now it's all that Capricorn stuff, the stuff that we've worked hard toward, that we've put a lot of effort into, right? And we make a commitment. Brian Epstein, this all happened in 1962. During that time, it was all when, again, it was January 24th was the day, January 24th, 1962. This time, look, we got Moon joined Pluto again, right? At that time, January 24th, 1962. This was the day when Brian Epstein had a verbal agreement with the Beatles that I'll be your manager for 25% of your earning. And they said, okay. It was a verbal agreement, but it's kind of like when they entered into that sort of agreement. Think of that. The Beatles wouldn't have been the Beatles without Brian Epstein, probably. They may have, but he was a promoter, a manager, and he got him in the clubs. He got him booked all over the place. He really made them professional. He got them looking like with the haircuts and stuff like that. Now, they had the talent. They always would have had the talent. But there's something to be said for a manager that just works on your behalf to do these things so that musicians can concentrate on playing music. So anybody who knows the history of the Beatles knows Brian Epstein is really crucial in getting them, recognition and getting them known. And of course, George Martin, the producer. But so that's huge, right? And the commitment, the contract. He said, okay, I want to manage you guys and blah, blah. And they said, okay, sure. And again, that happened when all these planets were in Capricorn. So again, that was also going on in the world at the time. Just like right now, we have people losing their minds over conspiracies and taking back the world, and oh my God, they're taking it from us, or whatever is going on with all of that. And there's a whole part of the world that's flourishing, never doing better. I just had a great weekend course where we talked about childhood astrology and understanding ourselves, and there are people who are just enjoying life, living life, getting the most out of these times right now, waiting for us to turn the corner on a lot of the intensity, like with the COVID and like with the current president and all the weird political stuff. It'll shake out. Right now, we're still in a kind of holding pattern. But like I said, in my 2021 forecast, the beginning of the year, we're going to be dealing with this intensity. In a few months, it's going to be much easier. Jupiter's going to move through. It'll be in Aquarius, a whole bunch of stuff. But I wanted to do this case study because this energy is piling up. And it's the same as we had in 62. And you could see by the time we had that eclipse, the day of the eclipse was the first day Ringo played with the Beatles. Now, again, look at that as a moment, right? On this crazy day, like what happened on this day? Well, Ringo played with the Beatles the first time. It wasn't a good day for Pete Best. Let's put it that way. Pete Best was feeling under the weather. And Ringo benefited, and we all benefited because he was perfect for the Beatles. So once they played with Ringo, they were like, man, this guy's better. Why don't we ask him if he wants to be in the band? Because actually Ringo's band at the time were called Rory, Storm, and the Hurricanes. They were actually better known than the Beatles. But Ringo played with the Beatles, and he liked it better too. And so Ringo really took a chance because Rory Storm and the Rory, what did I just say? Rory Storm and the whatever Hurricanes, they were actually better known, And Ringo was like, yeah, maybe you guys are better known, but I like playing with the Beatles better. I like their music better. And that's what started it. That was the first gig. Huge shift. And so, again, even things like the new space program with John Glenn, that was the first time we had an American orbit the Earth like that. So it really was a shot in the arm for like innovation. And again, look back not too long ago, we had that SpaceX rocket, go up to the space station and whatnot. So there's a whole lot of innovation that's right around the corner. So we can feel good about a lot of things. Particularly now, you want to really concentrate your energy on things. Find something to really concentrate on. It's a great time to be like studying. Again, here's the thing: when you're aligned with higher purposes and you're keeping all this stuff from the world in a better context, when you're losing the context and you're losing the narrative and you're losing yourself in all this, then you're not. Then when all this intensity comes, then it's just, then it's just, it just goes nowhere. You just spin out. But when you're aligned with, again, things like studying astrology or learning higher principles and higher practices, and you're meditating and whatnot, then all of this energy just invigorates you. It helps you concentrate even more. It just really focuses the mind. So that's really a lot of where we're at right now. And this is what I wanted to say. It's a sort of a quick video, but I just wanted to put this out there because I haven't done one in a while, and I really think this is important to see and to look at and to notice that. And particularly now, and frankly, it's sad for me. I see so many of my friends, and many of them are students and intelligent people, and they're looking deeper into things. And again, they've just gotten they're so worried and nervous and almost kind of paranoid. But I see them listening to all these other, again, astrologers and other people, and they're just buying into all of the oh, you watch and see, it's going to happen. Of course, these astrologers and these other people, they never say what it is that's going to happen. It's going to be intense. Oh, God, okay. And all right, I get it. But that's literally called paranoia. Unless you're going to make a prediction and say what it is, you're just fomenting hysteria. Or have the guts to just make the prediction about what you say is going to happen. But don't just keep saying, oh, it's going to be intense, and then when anything intense happens, claim that you got it right, or whatever. I don't really know what's going on with all this stuff, and I don't really care to do it, but the thing that bugs me, or that makes me feel sad, really, is how many people I know who I care about are just triggered right now. But I do know astrologically why, because of all this Capricorn energy. It's powerful. It's palpable. And so I'm making this to say, look, even back in 1962, when Indian astrologers were predicting the end of the world because of, imagine this with an eclipse happening here, it's always been going on like this. There's been some version of it's the end of the world. In the midst of that, again, we have the Beatles starting and John Glenn orbiting the Earth and President Kennedy delivering a speech on personal, rights and freedoms, and some of the best things that we've ever had happen had a genesis then. And that means in your life it's the same thing right now. Again, I just had a weekend class with more than 200 students where we went deeply into these beautiful techniques of Vedic astrology, Indian astrology, and learning about our past and our childhood and how to unravel the confusion. And it was so inspiring, and everybody focused and concentrated and taking it seriously and really learning things. All that's available to you. You don't have to spin out. Watch very closely your teachers right now. Who are you listening to? What is your purpose right now? This is the problem with Jupiter debilitated. And I said it before. The problem with Jupiter debilitated, like we have right now, is that we tend to lose hope. Particularly when it's joined Saturn and joined these other planets. Ask yourself if the people that you're listening to and that inspire you and that are inspiring some dark vision Are these really people that you want to emulate? I mean, and I'm not trying to be mean about anyone individually, but I see, the thing that surprises me is I don't know why anyone would want to follow either that philosophy or the people saying it. Again, find a good teacher, a good guru. Like, again, like, for example, my guru is Amma, a pure being of light. And Amma doesn't sugarcoat anything. She'll flat out tell you things that are going on, but it's not just hysterical paranoia mixed with like selfie image culture or whatever is going on. Just use discrimination right now. And again, the thing that's sad to me is I see people who I know, they like know of Amma and they know of these great teachers and they know of these great yogis and these people who are connected to the light, and they're not listening to any of that. They're listening to this other stuff. And again, I'm not saying it because I want to make fun of people. In fact, a lot of the people that are involved in those kinds of teaching, they're my friends. I like them. I don't think they're bad people. They're just misguided and they're not dialed into something that's grounded. And again, you will know, like I've said many times, with Capricorn and Saturn energy, you're going to see the facts, because Saturn and Capricorn energy is going to pound out all of the airy-fairy stuff. You can get away with all that airy-fairy stuff until Saturn comes and brings the consequences. Because I also see a lot of these teachers that are saying this other stuff, they're getting pummeled right now. Again, look at what happened after last weekend when the people came in the Capitol. That's really shifted in the U.S. All of this tolerance that people had for all of the conspirituality stuff. Now a lot of those thought leaders now, they're getting really descended upon now because, okay, we've been patient with all this stuff. Is this the world you want? Again, I've been saying this stuff even since we had the election. Like, what do you people think is going to happen? You keep talking about you're going to, like make Trump the winner. What do you think that's going to look like at this point? It's going to look like a civil war. That's the only thing going on. So again, I'm just pointing this out because at some point, Saturn comes and brings the consequences for saying all this stuff. And the pressure gets ratcheted up. So pay attention to who you're listening to and who you're believing and see how believable it is. Because in the midst of all of the triggering, paranoid, scary stuff, first of all, that stuff has always been said. And there's just enormous power and growth and intensity and wisdom. Again, Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn. And all of those planets are coming through Saturn's energy. That's why there was all that power before. Because the ruler of all those planets is in the house saying, I'm going to make sure that the dedication and the focus and the commitment is going to pay off for all of that energy. So again, if your philosophies and the way you're inspiring others and the way you're inspired is actually grounded and rooted in truth, then Saturn being there in Capricorn is going to give you the boon. If your power, like the sun, which is what you're radiating out, if that's landed and grounded in truth and hard-earned wisdom, which is Capricorn, then Saturn being there is going to give you the boon. He's going to give you the power, give you the insight. And if you're not, if you're believing in things that are ungrounded, Saturn's going to punish you to say, stop it. This is what I've been saying now for 2 months. Jupiter in Sagittarius is all about the philosophies. Well, he goes into Capricorn and says, are you putting it into practice? Because if you're not, you're going to be terrified and scared, and it's going to reveal the flaw. It's going to reveal the flaw in your teachers, in your teachings, in your philosophies that you believe in, but that you're not grounded in. That means that the benefit is get grounded in this stuff. Do the techniques, do the practices, and find good teachers that are inspiring. Because again, to me, these are very inspiring times. Even though it's intense, I can see around the corner here of what's going to be coming up. And how we're in a big shift away from something and towards something else. So I thought this would be a really good case study because I definitely see so much, triggering and so much, again, just worry and paranoia. And Ludmilla said, yes, Yuri Gagarin was the first in space in April 12, 1961. That's absolutely true. But of course, John Glenn was the first American, so it's a big deal for Americans. But absolutely, the Russians got into space first. But I'm just saying that it was still that same, that same energy that we see now. So anyway, I don't want this to be that long. It's already been about 35 minutes, which is good. But again, I make these videos. Sometimes I just make them to give people hope about something. And again, my apologies to anyone who might be offended by me talking about, I don't like to talk about, or I'm not talking about any astrologers in general who I think aren't good people or whatever. I think everyone's doing their best. And I can't help but see all of this and see literally kind of like the despondency and sort of the depression that's been spread. Even some of the astrologers themselves and the kind of healers and teachers that I've seen who all of their conspiracy that haven't worked out. All the Q stuff is wrong. It's all wrong. You'll see one. It's going to come back. It's going to happen. None of it's happened. And it's harder to come up with answers. And in fact, the things that have happened have revealed themselves to be really damaging. And the people who are going along with all of this stuff without consequence are now starting to say, you know what are you guys talking about? God, what is it? I saw the video last week, Alex Jones. I'm going to post a link to this video of Alex Jones, the conspiracy theorist, screaming his head off about the Q conspiracy people. If you haven't seen this video, it's a scream. He's like, shut up! You Q conspiracy, none of it works out! Alex Jones, who is the biggest conspiracy theorist ever, is just like had it. He's just had it with these people. He's like, what is wrong with you? He starts screaming his head off. You said Trump was invincible. You said he was omnipotent. You said we were all going to Gitmo. It's actually, I mean, to some extent, I find this, there's a lot of, not hysteria, like paranoia hysteria, but hysterical. Some of the stuff that's happening, I don't know, I can always find something funny, and maybe it's all my Gemini, but it's some of this stuff happening right now is really hysterical. So be light, man. It's gonna work out. So, and again, anyone, whatever, people who've made a lot of mistakes and gotten things wrong, you can always come out and say, I got sort of caught up in something. Again, it's okay. People, we all want to be, we're all trying to do our best. And honesty and integrity and admitting you got something wrong, for example, or whatever, is also a big part of being a grown-up, you come out and you do your best and you're like, make a prediction or say something, you get it wrong, you come out and say, I got it wrong. And here's why. Here's what I thought. Hopefully, if you did, you made the prediction that accounted for the thing that you might have gotten wrong. I did that when I talked about the election. I talked about what I could have gotten wrong. Anyway, so I don't want to get too rambly here. This is really about showing this case study because I think it's really quite fascinating. And it's a recurrence transit especially. And those things are powerful because we can go back and look and see what happened before. Very much similar kinds of things. You have to be able to see the congruence around what was happening then with almost exactly the same energy and what's happening now. We're on the cusp of a lot of big shifts. And so we'll leave it at that. And we'll, I hope you enjoyed this. Share this with others. And, last thing, I will put just the link to the 2021 forecast in here again, just so you can see that. It's definitely something, if you haven't gotten it yet. Oh, did I close the window? What happened? If you didn't get that yet, here it is. It would be here, and this would be for your forecast. This is for your chart. 2021 is here, and for the general forecast. And again, you can see we're here. We're right here now. I just talked about this one. So we have all these other things to talk about. We're going to have an exalted Venus coming up. We have Jupiter moving to Aquarius. We have some really good Mercury retrograde cycles. We have eclipses. All these things are coming up, and I talked about them this is a free forecast. 2021 cast. And folks, really it doesn't make me mad at people who say things and who follow their beliefs, but I think people don't understand the impact they have at times when they put negative paranoia into the bloodstream. Not careful enough with that kind of stuff, and it'll come back and get you, because people will stop trusting you. They'll feel like you're, maybe not being careful enough. And again, so it makes me sad to see people I care about who are going off the cliff with that kind of stuff. And this Saturn in Capricorn right now, this Jupiter in Capricorn right now, which shows it's going to reveal the power of our teachings and of what we're finding hope in, what's giving us hope, what's inspiring us. We need to be careful. And following good teachings is going to be very strong now, because Jupiter's in Capricorn with Saturn. All these planets being with Saturn shows that Saturn is going to deliver that very powerful boon wherever there's integrity around that thing. Again, when Venus goes into Capricorn, it'll be your romantic life, or your engagements, your agreements with people that are forged in service and dignified, practical, grounded, down to earth virtues will be rewarded. Mercury, your communication that's grounded and focused and practical, will be rewarded. Let me show the chart again, and I'll just sum it up with that. So again, we're here. So we're coming up on this time. So all these planets that you see, again, the sun is our power when it's grounded and integrated, because that's what Capricorn does. Saturn breaks things down and pressures them and kind of smashes them so that we integrate them. Just like you take and smash something and put it into a powder. Let's say like you have a pill and you want to have the pill like sort of dissolve in water. You got to smash it up. And that's what Saturn does. He like smashes things. And if they're weak, then then that essence just gets kind of obliterated. But when they're strong and there's something with a lot of integrity, they get fortified. So again, when our power is based on something that's really grounded and integrated, that's the sun. If our words and our ideas and what we communicate is grounded, and again, this is what's happening now, things are so ungrounded. People communicating about things that they don't know, they don't understand. They're just throwing out these ideas, and it gets people worked up into some state. Or Jupiter, again, our teachings. Venus, our agreements. And of course Saturn, which is our commitments themselves, is trying to really it brings integrity to things. Saturn is that integrity that is only won from the test of time. Integrity comes when there's sacrifice, when we're willing to be, again, grounded, and we're willing to admit mistakes, we're willing to be humble. All of these things are the virtues now. That's where you're going to find your virtues. And if you're just believing in things that aren't grounded in all of that, and again, especially because I notice a lot of people, and I'll just tell you this, I could get a lot more people to follow every one of my videos if I also made those compromises. If I always made the compromises where I didn't say things directly, where I just kind of go, you'll see, wait and see what happens. Oh, it's coming, huh? And I just kind of skirted around this stuff all the time and kind of whipped everything up to where it's always vague, and then I can always claim I got it right and see it was intense, like I said. I would get more people, but I would also be, I don't know, making everything so ungrounded and impractical. So be careful who you're listening to and follow pure teachings. I'm not saying me necessarily. I'm saying teachings like, with gurus. Again, I use my guru Amma, amazing teacher. There's great online teachers like Sri Ravi Shankar and these other masters. Listen to what they're saying. Listen to how they describe these things. These are enlightened beings. These people, you should be listening to them. Much more so than the person who is half in his selfie culture or her selfie culture with his and her, bling going on and what all that stuff, and then just saying a bunch of stuff to get everybody all worked up. Be careful with that stuff. You're feeling the consequences of that now. Okay, so we'll leave it at that, and you all have a good night. And again, sorry if I've upset anyone or offended anyone or whatever. That's never my intention. But again, I have to just be honest about things. That's all I really know how to do.